you may know, Vittorio is the founder, co-founder, and CEO of Bot Society. Bot Society is a design tool. It really helps with the design process of bots. And I know a lot of you have asked for design tools in the chat, so he's the perfect person to ask. And without further ado, Vittorio, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Oh,
hey, Stefan.
Vittorio.
Can you see me, right? There's a little bit too much light, but that's California, so. Can you hear me right?
I could hear you, but we can't see you. You're invisible.
Oh, okay, because I see myself.
You see him? Oh, all right. I don't see him.
You're not losing much anyway.
I see, man. Beautiful red shirt, beautiful beard. I see everything.
You got some good beard oil on that, don't you? It looks
Thank
good.
you. This is my quarantine beard. So at first I made a challenge. I would not cut it until the quarantine ended, and so it's gonna be a 2 years beard, I guess. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the intro, Stefan. So I'm Vittorio. I started Bot Society together with Stefano, my co-founder, and we started it because we needed it. Like, we needed a design tool for chat and voice assistants. We were building chatbots for big companies in Italy, and we were expecting somebody to come up with a design tool. And so there was nobody to do that. So we built one internally, and then Dennis from Dashbot put it on Product Hunt, and then kind of snowballed from there. And so here we are.
Perfect. So Dustin's a UX designer and copywriter. They're actually based in Hollywood, so they have Hollywood experience, and so is Jason. So Victoria, tell us a little bit more about Bot Society and how you think about designing bots, because when we first got started in this, conversations were very linear, but in real life, conversations aren't linear, right? Like we always bring up things from left field and right field that are not part of the conversation, but we bring them into the conversation and they add context and so on. So maybe we could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we ask this question ourselves every day, like, what is the right mental model when you're designing a conversation? Because that's exactly what you mentioned, right? So like, real conversations kind of like can go anywhere, anytime. People say anything, anytime. And so how do you bring a structure to that in a meaningful way from a design point of view? And so, as you mentioned, like at first and the Bot Society that you can currently use works very well for linear conversations where you have, one main interaction that has some back and forth, for example, or some buttons. And that's, I think, at the first stage, and it's important. Like, if you never try to design a conversation, that's where you should start anyway, because your mind needs to switch from like designing buttons to designing questions, and from designing with colors to design a persona. So it's kind of like a switch. And then what we have seen and the product that we're going to announce in the next couple of weeks, and we're giving access to some of those folks like Stefan, by the way. So if you're interested, you can let us know. But basically what we're doing is, okay, now you can structure multiple flows that have different levels of complexity. For example, I think something very interesting that you can do right now is designing dedicated fallbacks interactions, or we call them repair paths. And so basically, instead of your bot always saying stuff like, I'm sorry, I don't get it, or I'm sorry, I didn't understand, depending on where you are in the conversation and how many times there was a misunderstanding, then the bot says something different, right? And so you can escalate. For example, what we suggest to do is like you design one of those for each intent, basically, or for each portion of the conversation, and then you go on 3 levels, for example.
Okay.
Is it my internet or choppy?
Yeah.
I think it's
I'm not
Vittorio's.
getting anything.
I think Vittorio's in doing it in slow motion right
Did
now.
It's frozen. It's frozen in time.
Yes,
Call
Vittorio.
Elsa.
Drop this.
What is he holding? What is he holding? He's holding the Holy Grail. Holy Grail. Oh, there you are. Hi. You're back.
I'm back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will not move. Apparently moving kind of interferes with. I will just stand still. Yeah.
You seem to be good now.
Okay. Yeah. So what I was trying to do with moving, and I will try to stand still as much as an Italian can while talking. I will just say, so what we see people doing right now with a lot of success is designing 3 levels of repair paths. So for each intent, you say exactly what you wanted the bot to say specifically for that point, and then you design repair paths of your repair paths. And that helps a lot.
So one thing that I really like about design tools in particular, and we've touched a little bit with some of the other speakers on one, which is different tech stacks involved, which gets complicated. 2, different team members and their skill sets involved, that also kind of gets complicated as far as like collaboration space. But there's no center ground. Like there's no one place for everybody to meet, both creatives, developers, and then product managers or more task-oriented people, to understand everything that's going on in a nutshell. And software like yours accomplishes that, to some means. Like it might not be as developer friendly as a developer wants to see. It might not be as like creative, but it creates like an equal ground where everybody can see how this project is visually unraveling. Can you explain more of like how teams are meeting on like Bot Society, what teammates you've seen, how they're contributing to building and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we spent a lot of time in building collaboration features because we've seen that those are very important for our users. And so what we see happening is like the successful bots are basically a very tight collaboration between the business, I would say, side, which is usually like a product manager of some sort, right? The designers or the creative people involved, and sometimes, you can consider them copywriters or content managers or pure UX designers, but that's, there's someone in charge of the tone of voice and the interaction. And then, of course, the engineers, because there's some technological limitations, but also there's like, can we call our API and grab this data? Or are we allowed of like coming up with this email address kind of thing? So it's important that, as you said, like in the design phase, you kind of like bring everyone on the same page. With Bot Society, it's powerful because we have real-time collaboration. So kind of like Google Docs, you can see who's online and you can edit in real time and without overwriting each other and stuff like that. But yeah, so usually we see this multi-skills team contributing to the same design, either with feedback only, like, I just make a design and share it with my team, and we do a remote design critique session. That's very useful because if you rush it and you just say, okay, that's what we're going to do, we'll just move on and build it without having a clear understanding what's going to be built, usually what happens is that the expectations don't match. So like what I expect from the business point of view, it's not what gets built, or vice versa. And or the user expectations are not met. So like you build something, you release it, and then the user is expecting something different from your bot. He's asking questions that you didn't think about, or he's expecting a use case you didn't design for. So in this initial use design phase, what's interesting is we mainly see this design critique where like, okay, what do you guys think about this? What business thinks about this? I should not move. What engineers think about that? And user kind of like feedback. So what do you think about this interaction?
Mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you find that the creatives and engineers are able to work with each other a little more efficiently by kind of designing in the same place?
I think absolutely. I mean, look, the alternative, the most popular alternative to bot society is Microsoft Excel, which is a great software, but you cannot really make sure that the experience matches what you have in mind when you're looking at an Excel spreadsheet with 100 lines. It's just not there.
It's not as creative, right? And you can't can't think outside the box really by being in a box.
Yeah, and also like, look, sometimes what you're. I'll make an example. Like sometimes just changing the profile picture of your bot, it's already setting up a different context, and so the meaning of the first message, it's also conveyed by the profile picture. I'm just making a stupid example, but if the first message of your bot is not clear, there's no way it's going to work. So what you actually need when you're designing is not only the text content, you need a complete artifact, in the same way that like it will be extremely difficult to judge a website design only from the color palette without seeing like, okay, where is the content? Like, how is the website displayed? So if you manage to like have a rich artifact, that's the way they were thinking about it, a rich artifact. So like a complete design blueprint, then you can really bring people together. Usually that's what everybody looks for, by the way. Like I've never heard an engineer that says, I'm very happy when the specifications are not clear. Like that never happened in my life. So
yeah. Are you seeing, so how do you design for, let's say, one of the bigger benefits for having a bot is kind of being able to have an omni-channel presence, whether you come to the website, you have an initial chat with the bot, and then a couple of days later it follows up with an email and then a text message, and then maybe if they come to Facebook Messenger, it's able to interact as well. How do you design for that when there's multiple tiers or touch points for a user to engage kind of with the bot? I mean, similar to a business where there's multiple touch points for a business to reach its users, having a website, be on Facebook Messenger, run ads, have its own mobile app. Like with a bot being able to be on all these same interfaces, do you design the conversation differently, or some more of like a notification and like broadcast like solutions? How does that look on if you're creating a map?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think, okay, so the short answer is there is no one size fit all answer. We see different approaches working. I can tell you where our users like I found success. So the first thing that you want to think about is, are those experiences interchangeable? So for example, like I'm talking to your bot on Messenger, I'm talking to your bot on the website, it's a similar experience? Or are those experiences not interchangeable? So for example, a car interface with audio does not have the same experience on the website chat. Like they're still the same brand. You need to think about, okay, the persona is similar, but the use case is different, the context is different, so there's not going to be the same interaction. Once you group those interactions, first step, and sometimes it's just one, but it may not be the case. Another example is like the insurance company that has the same bot that talks to insurance agents and customers, right? Those are not interchangeable experiences. Once you grouped like the similar experiences, then what you can do in Bot Society, and a lot of our users use a lot, is what we call a generic channel, which is like an abstraction of the different channels that you have. So you're kind of like designing on a higher level. And once you have that approved and nailed down, then you can say, okay, how would this look like on Messenger? How would this look like on SMS? And you will need to change stuff, because like on SMS, you cannot send images. And like on Messenger, you can have videos. So you want to take advantage of that stuff.
That's true. Victoria, sorry that I'm interrupting. Across a certain vertical, if we're just talking about text experiences, if you're talking about things that are deployed on Messenger, on Kik, on Twitter, on whatever, but differentiating between the text experiences and the voice experiences, I found is two totally different design experiences, and we approach it differently. So the question is, when you do that in the beginning, you have that when you create that one size fits all. How do you take into account experiences that are voice, or experiences that are multimodal, that maybe VR, AR, or even in the car?
That's a great point. So, and this, I agree with you that this is an even different problem. So, hopefully, we'll be able to help the creative community shortly with Bot Society 2 with this new product. So, I'd love it to share it to you right now, but that will be weird because we didn't release the product yet. I'm not supposed to do that. But basically, what you can do is you can design the same experience on different devices.
It's a secret.
I think all of us can agree. We like weird. Like weird is cool.
Okay.
Weird is weird here.
I'm taking your word for it. So basically, you can create the same experience on different devices at the same time. I think that's where you start to make the switch, and the parallel that I try to make to my team and to our early users is, think about what happened when you had to design for mobile for the first time, right? So like voice is similar to mobile, as in like you have less real estate, you have tighter restrictions, but at the same time, you still want to. There's not me.
I know.
Okay. You still want to have a consistent experience across different devices. So, the way to do that, in our opinion, and hopefully, we'll be able to convince the design community shortly, is that you need to design at the same time and then appreciate the differences, but keep creating the interaction on multiple devices at the same time.
So we have a question from Cyril, and questions are open up. So if you guys, the attendees, if you guys have questions, please throw them in right now. We have just a couple of more questions for Vittorio before we wrap up. And Cyril asks, do you see companies using Bot Society for like the initial design only, or do they also use it after they've deployed their bot and they've used and they've learned from their users? And then if so, how do they incorporate that later on?
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. So we didn't expect to see folks using Bot Society after the initial design, but they started to do that. And so we started to build features for that. And we are committed to, make that easier and more powerful over time. Just to give you an idea, like we see folks not only starting a design from scratch, but also importing a Dialogflow agent as the starting point of their design. And that's because basically, look, when you release the bot, two things will happen or may happen. So the first one is the users will say something regarding a use case you designed for, but you just didn't have the training phrase, right? So the bot does not understand. And that means you just add the training phrases to the machine learning system, whether it's Rasa, Dialogflow, etc. Okay, and you don't need Bot Society for that. But the second scenario is that the users challenge you and they start to ask for use case that you didn't think about. And in that case, it's not only machine learning, like you need to design a new flow, a new use case. And that's usually where we see people going back to Bot Society, maybe importing an existing agent, maybe just designing the new use case. And so it's a very good question, by the way, Laura.
Yeah. Oh, that was cool. So last question from Laura. She asks, once you design a conversation and hand it over to development and it goes to production, does your product have the ability to keep that flow so that we can then make updates, or do you have to save local copies of that design?
Yeah, so this is a very good point. So this is the way that it works. So basically what you can do is you create the design, and then you hand it over, and it's from that point on, if you update the design, it does not automatically update on your production. So let's say that you export to Dialogflow and then you change your design. It's not like we're going to deploy that to Dialogflow without telling you anything, because that will be dangerous too. But what you can do is you can say, okay, now export again. And at that point, you overwrite what you have, or you can, export to a new Dialogflow agent. And that I'm mentioning Dialogflow, but this works also with Rasa, with the Microsoft Bot framework, eventually with a lot of other platforms. So you have that flow, but it's a manual flow. Like you need to expressively each time say, yes, export to the production environment or import from your production environment to a new design. And that's because you want to have the creativity of changing your design without having to worry that you're breaking everyone experience on the production side. So you want to like drag and drop your message around. You want to try another image or whatever without like worrying about the user seeing that without you saying, okay, I'm sure.
Got it. Yeah, I really like the way that's thought out. Vittorio, if the attendees want to get in touch with you or learn more about Bot Society, what's the best way to get in touch with you and then to learn more about you guys?
Sure. So I think the best way would be to drop us an email at info@botsociety.com or to just go on the website.